It's time now for business with Kate Moody. Kate,
hi, James.
The clock is ticking. Hello. On escalation of trade tensions between the US and China. You've been keeping an eye on it. Tell us what is going on.
We're 9 hours away, in theory, James, from Donald Trump imposing his threat of increased and expanded tariffs on Chinese goods. It could take place just after midnight in Washington. Now, talks are underway there. Beijing has said it will retaliate if he goes ahead. U.S. officials, for their part, say China has already backed off of commitments made in earlier discussions. Now, President Trump has said this evening he will speak to Xi Jinping by phone soon. He says a deal remains possible, but that he believes tariffs would otherwise present a, quote, excellent alternative. Take a listen.
I have no idea what's going to happen. I did get last night a very beautiful letter from President Xi. Let's work together. Let's see if we can get something done. But they renegotiated the deal. I mean, they took, whether it's intellectual property theft, they took many, many parts of that deal and they renegotiated. You can't do that. And I'm different than a lot of people. I happen to think that tariffs for a country are very powerful.
Well, meanwhile, the U.S. Commerce Department reported that in March, the trade deficit with China had hit a 3-year low, with U.S. exports to China rising while imports fell. Well, industry leaders on both sides have been calling for a longer-term truce. Peter O'Brien reports.
Toyed with. Just like Yu Fengfeng, a wholesaler in Zhejiang province, exporters across China are sick of the international trade war.
Compared with years before, we've lost about half of our orders. It's difficult to do business and difficult to get money back.
Now we don't get any orders from the U.S. Most of our clients are from the Middle East, but they're also under U.S. sanctions.
It affects the whole world, not just our market, not just China.
Since the U.S. first increased tariffs last summer, many Chinese factories that serve the American markets have been devastated. Last month, Chinese exports to the US dropped 13% from a year earlier, and industries such as electronics have seen sales to the US plummet by up to 40%. Across the Pacific, the outlook is also bleak. Exports to China fell by a quarter last month, and the manufacturing industry is undergoing a significant slowdown. American soy farmers have been particularly hard hit by Chinese retaliation. They're now calling on Donald Trump to end the dispute.
Our patience is wearing thin as prices remain low and the tariff dispute drags on. The financial and emotional toll on U.S. soybean farmers cannot be ignored.
The health of all these industries hangs in the balance. This week, the US will decide whether or not to stick to President Trump's proposed massive increase on tariffs.
Well, uncertainty over the outcome of those talks has taken a toll on global markets once again this Thursday. Wall Street has pared back some of its earlier very sharp losses. We had seen the Dow Jones down as much as 350 points. We've got less than an hour to go until the closing bell, so we'll see how investors react to the possibility of a deal anyway. Earlier on, the major European indices closed sharply lower, the CAC 40 losing nearly 2% here in Paris. Well, separately, U.S. authorities have decided to block China Mobile from American telecoms operations. The company had applied to provide phone and internet service to U.S. consumers, but the Federal Communications Commission voted unanimously to reject it, citing national security risks. The move was widely expected, as the Trump administration has taken a similar stance against Huawei, but the timing of the vote could further complicate those ongoing trade talks between Washington and Beijing. Boeing 737 MAX planes remain grounded around the world after 2 fatal crashes cost 346 lives. This week, the Federal Aviation Administration said it was convening a special board to review the proposed software fixes, which Boeing hopes will get its planes back in the air. I've been speaking to former pilot and industry expert Bjorn Fehrm about Boeing's brand problem and how much responsibility should be taken by regulators.
I think they should be shouldering about half of the blame for what happened, because their oversight has been lacking. And once again, it's very damaging for the FAA and Boeing how the cooperation between FAA and Boeing actually has been conducted. The more that's coming up, the more you would question how they work together. FAA has given Boeing far too much responsibility, far too much own revealing of whatever problem they have with the aircraft, and not enough oversight. So I think FAA is in equal measure in problem as Boeing is.
How does a safety and PR crisis like this one affect the aviation industry as a whole?
It's negative for the aviation industry. I talked to an Airbus executive just recently, and he said this is not good for anyone. Safety is something which the airlines and the aircraft industry hold very dear, and they don't compete on it. They don't say, look, I was better, you were worse. That's an absolute no-no in this business. Everyone is working to put in the most safe airline transport system that we can achieve in the world. And this is bad for the whole industry.
And you can see more of that interview in this week's People and Profit. That's on our website, France24.com. Well, it was meant to be the most secure banknote in the world. But Australia's new $50 note, which was released in October, has one embarrassing flaw. A typo repeated 3 times. Wasim Korne has the details.
It's a gaffe that is certainly worth its weight in comedy gold. An eagle-eyed radio reporter in Australia spotted a typo on a $50 banknote. The word responsibility is misspelt 3 times. And the country's central bank has confirmed that, yes, all 46 million notes in circulation include the same mistake.
It's a huge mistake, and I mean an absolute huge mistake.
Australians were quick to give their own 2 cents about the typo seen around the world. There was the sarcastic.
You could say it could be very irresponsible.
The nostalgic.
I think it's sad that people can't spell properly anymore. Or don't they have anyone checking it?
And the flat-out pragmatic.
They're still worth $50. That's all that matters.
The $50 bill shows an image of Edith Cowan, the first woman elected to the Australian Parliament. The typo appears in an extract of a speech she made in 1921. The Australian Central Bank has said it would correct the error in the next print run later this year. In the meantime, if Australians were looking for a brand new reason to laugh, well, it seems like they've hit the jackpot.
Good case for a spell checker, even at the Australian Mint.
It's definitely going to become a party game now. Like getting out the magnifying glass. Is this the new corrected version of the $50?
Absolutely,
note,
I'm in.
or the old one? All right.
I'm in.
It could be fun, briefly. All right, Kate, thanks for that. Quick break and we'll be back with the rest of the news.